All right, we're gonna start. Mary Jane, I think we're gonna start with you. Uh, and I'm always making the assumption that everyone knows who you are, but just in case, you
Okay.
can kind of reintroduce yourself, and then um,
Okay.
we're recording this. So anyone that's watching the recording right now that needs to make any changes or contact Mary Jane, if you could just tell them the best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I
So
will. And they should know who I am from last semester, but just in case someone missed Dr. Johnson's first class when I was introduced, I'm Mary Jane Hall, and I'm the counseling practicum field supervisor. I'm the person from the Amberton Counseling Department that makes contact with the site supervisors, and I get information about the type of clients you're working with, how you're doing in supervision, um, the progress you're making with your counseling knowledge and skills, and any areas of growth that you're working on or that your supervisor's recommending for you to work on. And I'll write that up in a report. And for practicum 1 and 3, I send those reports to Dr. Johnson, and for practicum 2 and extended, I send to Dr. Bedard. And most of the time it's very positive. Kelly Akins, the site supervisor at Rockwall County Jail, called me last week because we've had a lot of students with her, and she was so excited and raving about the 3 students that are continuing with her in practicum 2. And so we set up a time for a conference, and I actually had a phone conference with her today. I know it's a little early in the semester, but these 3 students that are continuing there are doing just such a great job. She wanted to go ahead and talk about them. And I see Brene's name up here. I don't see her. I see Crystal and Andrea. I don't see Andrea. But I had a very nice conversation today about with Kelly about those 3 students, and she's looking for more students for Rockwall County Jail. She has a good program there at the jail, and it's been going on for quite some time. And I think the students really get a lot of good experience working with clients with lots of issues. So anyway, that was very positive, and most of my phone conferences are very, very positive. I hear a lot of good things about the students. And I know Loletta, I see her name. I don't see her, but hi, Loletta. You're a counselor in Dallas ISD, and I used to be there. And you were at Rockwall County Jail last semester, and Kelly had good things to say about you, but I know you're going to be at the high school this semester. But anyway, I started off with those 3. I have to give practicum 1 students time to get started. So they need 4 or 5 weeks to get started. So I have to start the semester with practicum 2 students making phone calls, since you've already been at your site for quite a while. And that brings me to what I wanted to ask. If anyone has a change in either site supervisor or site, please text me and let me know. And I'm going to give you my phone number, 214-577-3731. And I'm going to repeat it, 214-577-3731. And if I don't hear from you, I will go ahead and contact the site supervisor that I contacted last semester and wrote the report from that conversation. But usually there aren't many changes, but I already know of one change where there's a different site supervisor. So there may be some more. And if you have a change, just please let me know. And so, Dr. Bedard, I think that's all, unless you have anything else you want me to say.
I think Lizzie had a
That's about
question.
it. I just need to know about any changes, so I'll contact the correct
Okay.
person.
Yeah, I think Lizzie had a question.
Yes. So my question is, if our supervisors give you like any feedback of like areas of growth for us, is that something that you just ask them to
I just
talk with
asked,
us about? Or
no, I
or
asked them if they have, if the student or if the supervisor has identified any areas of growth that they would like for the student to focus on during this semester, or if the student, sometimes a student just says, I want to work with more families this semester, or I want to get more experience working with children. I've always had adult clients and I want to see some teens or some just, it's a positive thing. I do ask if they have any concerns, and most of the time, 99% of the time, they say no concerns. The student is still building their self-confidence, they're learning new strategies. And then I say, and what is your focus or area of growth for this semester? And they'll say, well, she said she wanted to work on learning more about trauma, that kind of thing. So it's a positive thing, just information for me, and then to pass on to Dr. Bedard about what particular interest you have for this semester. And sometimes they say they're just focusing on honing their skills, or they're focusing on trusting the process or building self-confidence. I hear those kinds of things a lot.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, like, if there were areas that like we need to improve, that there's like a line of communication as far as like letting us know.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of our supervisors would already be talking to us about that, but I just wanted
well,
to.
And that's always my first question when they say to me something they have a concern about. The first thing out of my mouth is, have you talked with the student about this? Because if you don't know that the supervisor has a concern, then you think everything's going okay and fine. And so you have to know. And of course, if a site supervisor contacts me with a concern, I immediately let Dr. Bedard know or Dr. Johnson know, so that they can follow up and, try to come up with a plan so that the student can be successful at their site.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I'm sure where you are at Rockwall County Jail, you would know immediately if Kelly Aikens had any concerns, because she's very upfront and would certainly tell you.
Kristen, Kristen, I think maybe has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. My question has to do with the indirect hours. So last term, I had talked to Dr. Johnson because I wasn't getting a lot of indirect hours at the facility. And so, I mean, I'm getting some, but it's going to take me like a year because, I mean, they just don't have a lot for me to do there indirectly or with the indirect hours. So anyway, with that being said, Dr. Johnson said that I could sign up for like classes through Coursera or through Udemy. So I signed up, and then as I complete those hours, and I'm supposed to get a certificate. Is that going to be it? Do I just need to submit the certificate, or do I need to do a write-up, or is there anything additional needed? I don't want to assume it's that simple. I'd rather ask.
Well, that's a Dr. Bedard question, because he's going to be approving your hours and looking at your hours.
Okay.
So Dr. Bedard, if you want to address that.
Yeah, just one second. Does anyone else have any questions for Mary Jane?
Well, it's great to see you. And Dr. Bedard, I'm sure there are students who haven't joined yet. And if you'd please ask them to text me or call me with any information if they have a change. Otherwise, I'm going ahead with the same supervisor that I talked with last semester.
Okay, I sure will. I'll pass it along. And I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It was great to see you and to see the students that are here. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Kristen, so here's a couple of things. You get 80 hours for 40 hours per class indirect. And so every note you take, every book you read, every class you take, everything you do
Okay.
outside of face-to-face work can count for your indirect hours. So if you take a class and get a certification, let's say, you just count those hours. You don't necessarily have to show your certification. You would just note that on your hours log. So it's the same as if you're taking it's the same thing if you do a case note. I don't want your case note. I just want to know that you took X amount of time to write a case note, or any time, any kind of supervision you do can count for that, because a lot of times you're doing certain things. So the indirect hours are pretty loosely based, and so yeah, there's a lot of really creative ways to get that. Because are you doing LPC?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so you need 200 indirect hours. So I mean, I've never had anyone not get that.
Okay.
So if we get to, I don't know, if we get to like mid-October and you're like, oh shoot, I'm way behind. Let's revisit then.
Okay.
And just make sure, because I'm going to revisit with you guys periodically anyway, just about your hours in general. But like if we get to mid-October and you're still like, oh shoot, I've got, I need 100 hours. That would obviously be something we need to talk about. But there's a lot of creative ways to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to connect with you, because I mean the site that I'm working at, they're fully staffed. I mean, except for LPCs, they're fully staffed with non-clinical, and so I mean they're having me do some outreach calls to providers to get like fax numbers. So there are maybe 5 hours a week I can get from. It's really hard, and my supervisor's trying to find stuff for me to do. So I said, I better get on this before it's too late. So I may have to connect with you, Dr. Bedard. So that's helpful though.
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to that. So with sorry, I kind of relates to like helping you, Kristen. So I didn't mean to cut you off or anything.
No.
So my understanding with the 300 hours is that it's a minimum 100 hours of direct contact with clients. Is there a minimum of indirect hours?
Yeah, 200.
That's the minimum indirect?
Yeah, 200 and 100, it comes to 300, right? So 100 hours of direct client contact and 200 indirect. That gives you your 300.
Okay.
You can go over that. You can go over that many.
Because I understood it as 300 total, and 100 of those minimum had to be direct contact. But
Correct.
That's incorrect.
I think I just said the same thing, but maybe I didn't.
You didn't.
Okay.
Because so like where I work, it's easy to get direct, and indirect is harder. So I could end up with 150 direct.
Correct. Yeah.
So does that mean I still need 200 indirect?
You got to get 200 indirect and 100 direct. You can get 200 direct and you still need 200 indirect.
Okay. And is part of that 200 indirect the 80 hours for class?
Yes.
So really it's not
120.
It's 120. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, crystal clear now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The reason why it's guys, I'm sorry I saw 10 people today. I'm a little foggy, so just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around a couple of things. The reason why that's important is because when you start gathering your hours and you start getting close to when you're done with your hours, for some reason, like we kind of like second guess ourselves, like, did I do this right? We get close and we overthink it, when all along we've probably been doing it right. We've been doing the right thing. But it is good to get in your mind, like, okay, I need X amount direct and X amount indirect, and they are separate. You can get more of one you can, you know, I mean, you can get more of one or the other, but there is a minimum amount. And so it is important to, I'm glad y'all are bringing this up. I'm glad you're talking about it, because it is good to get in your mind, like, okay, there is a minimum that I'm going for, because as you get to the end of collecting your hours for your full licensure, in our brains, we will start to be like, did I do this right? You'll do this, this will happen. Did I do this right? As long as you're counting everything and you know, noting everything, just trust that you're doing it correctly. So that's why I'm glad you're asking the questions. That's why I asked that I just say the same thing Lizzie just said, because in my head, I'm here, like, I'm a little foggy. I'm just a little foggy. So I think we're on the same page now. So there's a minimum 200 hours indirect. You already have 80, so really it's 120, and then the 100 hours direct. Now, if you're doing the LMFT, you're going to split that. It's going to be a little different, but the LPC, that's kind of the basics. Does that? I feel like I'm rambling now, pretty much.
I actually, oh, go ahead, Kathy. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I have a question about, well, hopefully direct hours. How do we count hours when we consult with another clinician, another either intern, practicing intern, like say about the group we're working on? I asked because one of the other interns goes to A&M, and she told me to ask because they can count their consults as direct hours.
I mean,
So-
I personally don't have a problem with it.
Mhm.
It's technically a non-direct hour
And
because
I'm
you're not with the
fine.
client.
Yeah.
Here's why we're loose, a little bit loose. After COVID, we got real loose because it was so hard to get hours, and so there has been a little bit of leniency towards getting the hours. And here's the realistic, the long and the short of it is, when you guys graduate, do your application and get your associate license, you have to do 3,000 hours anyway. It's not like you're not going to do any hours. You're going to do a buttload of hours, right? So this literally is like a drop in the bucket of what you're about to do, right? You're just trying to graduate from an academic program, knowing that what you're really about to do is going to be a lot harder than what you just did. Does that make sense? So we can be a little flexible on that, how we get them. You know, I've had students do like mock sessions with other students and they get hours that way too.
Okay. Thank
You know,
you.
you can
Just in
anything,
case.
yeah, anything you can do to get the hours.
Okay.
Like during COVID, y'all, we were like, man, I'm telling you, we were doing all kind of stuff. Yeah, hours because sites shut down. You know, like people were shut down, and so we were doing sessions in the class, like we were doing stuff in class, and I mean, you just kind of do what you need to do. So we can be pretty flexible
Okay.
with
Cool.
that. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Ryan, what were you going to say?
Well,
We can't hear you. We can see you.
okay, I'll chat.
We really wanted to hear you. Anybody else have any questions while he's typing? Kristen, did that answer your question?
It does. But now I have another question, piggybacking off of Kathy's question. Is there something on the state, maybe I missed it, is there something on the state website that specifically lays it out? Because to Kathy's point, if I'm consulting with another LPC associate, can I count those towards direct or indirect? I mean, once we graduate, I understand, you know, once we're done here with the academic portion, is that somewhere on the LPC website? Did we miss that? It is.
No, it's
Okay.
it's all in the rules. You guys can go on that site. I showed this the first class. It's on the recording.
Okay. I could just have missed it, Dr. Bedard. I'll go back.
No. The BHEC site, BHEC, it's got all of the listed mental health or mental health provider services there. You can look up the LPC rules, and it's very specific about everything. Their those documents are really long, and they're very specific about what counts and what doesn't. And your supervisor, whoever you get to supervise you, will also be very specific. And because when you start practice, this is what we're going to talk about tonight anyway. So when you start practicing as an associate, you're under the umbrella of your supervisor, right? And so that person is kind of like semi in charge of what you count and not count, just because you're practicing under their license.
Got it. Okay.
Right. But their rules are very specific. Yeah, you won't have any trouble knowing exactly, what you should be doing. And I would encourage you guys to go ahead and get on that website and kind of start looking around. And there have been some rule changes, and there's actually a set of rule changes for the LMFT program, Ryan, and anyone else that they're about to start talking about. I feel like it's in October. I just got an email today about it. I don't know what the changes are yet or what they're proposing. I think they're proposing something. I don't know what that is yet, but you guys can get on the email list for like LPC board meetings or LMFT board meetings. You can get on those email lists and you can start getting updates for like proposed rule changes or changes in guidelines or anything like that. It's really super helpful, I think, to do that, because you kind of stay abreast of or stay current with what's going on. Yeah, Ryan, you're right. So half your direct have to be couples or family or relational. What I would do is I would designate the relationship hours and the like non-relationship hours and keep them separate, because you'll want to do that anyway when you start gathering your hours for licensure. That's okay. That's okay. When you get to the end of Pract 2, when you get all your hours, well, you're going to go to Pract 3 anyway, so you're not done. You still got a little ways to go. You're almost there. Okay. Any other questions about any of that stuff?
One more. So when we turn in our log sheets, I did not break out indirect hours. I just did total and direct in Prac 1. Do you want to see like a column that has like indirect hours so that you know that, or do you just want to do it by subtraction?
No, you can do it just fine. That's fine.
And then do we put our 80 hours for the class in that sheet as well?
Yeah, everything. What you'll turn into me is every single hour you've done since you started Prac 1, like everything you've done all the way through, including the break between classes.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll turn all of it into me, including the 80 hours from both classes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, when you start on your license, it probably will be helpful to kind of keep things separate just for you. The reason I say that, again, 3,000 hours is a lot. So you don't want to get to like 2,693 and you're like, oh crap, I got to pull all these out now. You want to keep them separated as you go. One of these days, I'm going to look in one of my folders and I'll show you guys what I did to gather my hours. I've got a huge spreadsheet that I kept everything in.
And our supervision hours are indirect.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually, I don't know. The one thing that's always different it's always different per site. Like the supervision time frame is usually different. Some supervisors are really good about meeting weekly, like you have a standing appointment. Some are kind of like, let's meet into, so kind of that kind of depends. But we can be a little bit relaxed on some of it. But if you ever have questions, don't ever hesitate to ask, for sure. For sure. John, you're asking logging the 40 practicum hours on the log. You'll want to put, so that 40 hours in practicum 1 and 40 hours in practicum 2, you'll put on the log sheet, because that's 80 hours total that you get. So you'll definitely want to put that on the log. Yeah, include that on the log.
Okay, I didn't include that on my first log for practicum 1.
Yeah, just put it on there now. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan, you're talking about, there's apps now, there's website, there's all kinds of things that help you track hours now. I did mine like with the slide rule and sundial, back in the day. There's all kinds of stuff now. It's awesome. Yeah, I would look, if I was y'all, I would do anything you can to help you do it quicker. I would do it, whatever it is. I think it's smart to do it that way, to whatever helps you. So that's good. Is anybody, excuse me, is anybody like direct hours wise, is anybody worried about not having enough or?
I mean, I feel like I'm gonna be close because of my the clients I see. I get a lot of no-shows or just inconsistencies. But I think I did a 2-hour long intake today, and my supervisor is letting me take her on as long as she knows that I'm leaving mid-November. And so that'll help because she may even want to meet a couple times a week. So I don't know. I'm just being anxious about it. I think I'm like, if you looked at it, you'd probably be like, you're wasting my time. But
how many hours do you have? You know,
I'd have to look as of during our break, I had 57.75 or something.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be all right.
Okay.
You only need 43 more.
I know.
Divided by 10, that's 4 hours a week or so.
I know. And I'm getting there.
You'll be all right. But I understand the anxiety.
No
I
shoot.
get it.
Yeah, and
I'd
rather get it done early.
Yeah, totally get it. Totally understand. Yeah. That anxiety is real. I understand that. Yeah. You'll be okay.
Okay, I'll keep you posted.
I'd be more worried if it was like 27.
Okay.
So I don't know, I think there's a amount you shoot for Prac 1, right? There's like an amount you're trying to get usually.
It was 40, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about hours or anything like that? Like any questions about that?
I just want to clarify, do we count these classes for like indirect hours as well?
Mm-hmm. So you get 40 hours for Prac 1 and 40 hours for Prac 2. So you get 80
okay.
total.
So our classes are the actual. Okay, I got you now. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Any other questions about hours? Okay. So tonight is going to be a couple of things. I wanted to start with any case consultation questions that you would have. So this is what that would mean. If you have a case that you're working on that you're either stuck with or kind of don't know what to do, or you've done everything you know and you're stuck there, having some trouble. Sometimes it's an ethical question, like we've done ethical question kind of stuff too before. If there's something like that you would like to discuss, you would basically just give us super general information, obviously not sharing any names, or you're just saying, hey, here's the case, here's the basic demographics of the client, here's what they presented with, what they wanted help with, and here's what we've done so far. And then we basically are kind of like your hive mind, right? So we're just going to like try to help you think through, like in collaboration with you, not work against you or not be opposed to you, but work in collaboration with you to see if we can help. And once we get done with that, then that could take a little while depending on how long we go. After that, I'm going to jump into some kind of private practice questions, but more along the lines of like, what does it look like to set my fees and how does insurance work? Some basic stuff, super basic overview stuff this week. And we'll see how far we get tonight and how far along we get. And then like Ryan has to jump off. If anyone has to jump off, that's fine. You can it's no big deal. That's why I'm recording it. So now, does anyone have a case that you would like to talk about or discuss that you would like help with, or that you're stuck on, or I mean, you could have been working with this person a week or 10 weeks. It doesn't really matter. You know, does anyone have anything?
So I have two, but I'll just bring up one, and then if no one, I'll bring up the tougher one, or just more lost one. So I work at an addiction treatment center. I partially work with clients who are in detox, and then I also work with a trauma-informed residential program. And in particular with the detox clients, I have a client who is he's in his late 20s, not married, no kids, has some pending legal charges because of drug possession, and he is we got him to commit to a residential program. So he will be completing that because he recognizes that it's best for his legal case. But he is attempting to try and make all these demands of what he needs access to during his treatment. Like he has asked for his PS5, and that is not something that we don't allow electronics for them. And I can definitely see some enabling behavior from his parents. His parents there's a lot of enmeshment in that relationship where they are holding boundaries in the sense that they will not let him return home if he does not complete treatment, but they also are kind of willing to give him whatever he wants to get him to stay in treatment, and just have really been, I mean, they pay for everything for him. How do I approach, like today when I was trying to have a session with him, he was very fixated on getting access to his PS5, and that's all he wanted to talk about. He was like, well, can you make sure that they're going to have that for me at residential? Like, I will call my mom and let her know because she's a lawyer, and she'll talk him into it. How do I was struggling with trying to get him to talk about something other than that, and even trying to point out like, hey, let's focus on like what you will be able to do at residential. So my question is, how do I get him to get off that topic, and also like starting to address because there's a small chance that he may end up in the residential program that I work with. How do I also address the relationship of enmeshment with his mother without triggering? I don't know. I feel like I just kind of rambled. I don't know if that makes sense, or if y'all have any questions.
So what we'll do, if anybody has any like questions, follow-up questions, or any kind of question, that's what we'll do right now. So let's try to avoid like, hey, have you tried this, instead of like any clarification questions, and then we'll go to the, hey, what about these things kind of stuff. So start with any clarification that you have. Like I missed his age, Lizzie. I missed the age.
I did too.
Late 20s, single, and he is heavily, I'm in Austin actually. He is heavily focused on music, and he's like, well, am I going to be out of treatment by this time so that I can make a show that my band is committed to? So that's also a factor.
What level of care is he in again, Lizzie?
He's in detox.
Okay. Is it from alcohol or substance use?
Substance. So fentanyl, marijuana, cocaine, and codeine.
Okay. It sounds like there's also some behavioral addictions too, right? Like the PS5.
Yeah, he even said that he was like music and he's allowed to have his guitar, so he has his guitar. But he said music and playing my guitar and playing my PS5 or that's the way that I cope with anxiety. I need those.
Okay.
And I tried telling him, hey, maybe it's a chance to develop different coping tools, and he did not like that.
Okay.
Do you
And
have
aside
any
from the
other?
parent,
Go ahead. Go
What's
ahead,
that?
Chris.
sorry, Dr. Bernard. I was just going to ask, aside from the parents kind of giving in to him, how willing are they, or have they expressed how involved they're willing to be in his treatment? I know you said 20-ish.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
are they,
Yeah,
that's the question.
so they are too willing to be involved in his treatment. Like I said, they are willing, they are financially well off, and so they're kind of like, hey, money is not an issue, and if you complete this program, we will hire the best lawyer for you for your legal case. But if you don't complete this treatment program, then we will not be doing that. So there's also some manipulation there on their end, but they are very, very willing to do whatever is needed, but they also don't have, there's like codependency within that as well. Because even when he said like, well, just tell my mom, she's a lawyer and she'll convince them to let me have my PS5, I was like, that's not what we're gonna do.
How willing are they to actually to do the work though, the therapy, or support him, set boundaries? I mean, have you gotten to that level with them, or are they just willing to pay for everything?
I have not gotten to that
Okay.
level with them. They're willing to set the boundary in the sense of telling him, you know, you are not welcome to return home. We will not pay for your apartment if you leave. Like kind of setting the boundaries of, we're not going to enable you to AMA and continue the addiction.
What's his charge?
What's that?
What's his charge? His legal charge? You know, like possession or
yeah, possession. He had 3 charges. It was I think it was possession of marijuana. I think it was with intent to distribute, and then uh he tried to hide it on his person, is where I will leave that statement. Oh, that's what it was. He tried to bring fentanyl pills into jail by hiding them on his person. And so he had marijuana, he had fentanyl pills, and then was hiding on his person. Those were the 3.
Okay.
And he has a prior conviction, let's see, 4 years ago for possession of marijuana. He has like a month left of probation. Oh, sorry. And the big thing that I have addressed with him, and he's on a safety contract, is that he told me that if he gets prison time, he will kill himself or go to Mexico, and is super adamant about that. But I've confirmed with parents he doesn't have access to that outside, and he doesn't have access to it in the facility. But that's his solution if he gets prison time.
You might have said this and I missed it earlier. Is there a reason he's allowed to have an instrument but not the PlayStation?
We're a music-based recovery, so it's called Recovery Unplugged. So it's music based, and so we do allow them to have access to instruments. And we have like a room that's like pretty, because the facility itself is kind of like in a neighborhood. It's kind of like a large house compound situation. And so we have like a specific room that's like soundproofed and everything, so they're able to just crank up in there. So
Yeah, no, it's in the name, music unplugged, so you can have
Yeah.
music unplugged from the tech. That makes perfect sense.
What all is the therapy for detox that he would be having? Like you said, residential, so I assume there's some duration of time that he will be staying there. But what are the days like? How much of the day is therapy, and how much of it is, his own time where he would be bored and have something he would have to find something to do?
yeah, so when they're in detox, they can't step down to residential until they're medically cleared by our doctors. So we have 24/7 nursing, and they meet with doctors daily. And so his day, there's a process group. Well, there's a meditation in the morning. There's a process group. Then they have about let's see, of like 5-hour break, and then they have a psych ed group in the afternoon, and then in the evening they bring in H&I, which is like a AA meeting, but we bring in someone to lead that from offsite. So his days have some, and in between those, he's meeting with providers, but the focus of detox is really to address their physical needs and get them back to a physical state to where they can move on to residential to then work on the addiction, like more mental side of things. So it's kind of a tricky situation where we don't have as many groups for them in detox, because a lot of times like they're just going through it. They're dealing with a lot of withdrawal symptoms, and just kind of being unable to engage as much as they can once they're in residential, because they're medically cleared and able to participate more. But they have, we've got like an outdoor area with some outdoor games. We've got ping pong table. We've also got multiple living rooms with access to like Netflix or streaming services. So he has that access as well.
How many times have you met with him so far?
I have met with him. So he came in on Saturday. I've met with him 3 times, because when they're in detox, they meet with a counselor daily.
I have a question, and maybe I missed it, but has he voiced that he wants to quit all these drugs?
So he told me that his plan is to just get off fentanyl. He doesn't actually want to be sober. He wants to be able to still use marijuana. So, which is honestly, and I've been at this site for since early July. That's not uncommon for them to say that, especially when they haven't. There's usually a whole different mindset when they're at the end of residential. I've had plenty of clients that have gone through residential who have said, "Oh, I'm gonna still smoke weed," and we're like, "Okay,
California sober," but it may not be up to him with this legal stuff. It'll probably not be up to him.
Yeah.
So Lizzie, when you work with him, do you like allow him to process? Do you do like psychoeducation? Like what exactly do you or have you been doing with him?
When we meet individually, you know, it varies the first time that I met with him. So I did his initial paperwork, so that's getting him to sign his initial treatment plan of what we're going to work on with him while he's in detox, then going through the CSSR to assess for suicide risk. I did a safety plan with him because he did score high on the CSSR. And then I also did his biopsych social assessment with him, which is just gathering like his family history, drug use history, also any trauma or abuse history, things like that. So that was kind of like on the front end, probably our two initial sessions. And then I guess I've met with him 4 times because I met with him yesterday and today. And he was a bit kind of not feeling great when I did those first two. But yesterday and today, he's much more coherent, feeling better physically. But when I met with him for his individual sessions, it's just checking in on how's he doing, how's he feeling with residential. Yesterday I had a family session with his mother and stepdad where that's when they expressed the gravity of his situation legally. And he was able to hear from them that, you know, if he doesn't complete treatment, it's going to look a lot worse for him as far as legal charges. So that's when we got the buy-in for stepping down to residential instead of just trying to discharge from detox.
Okay. And have you guys worked on goals? Like, have you partnered with him? Because he's over 18, right? This is his life, his journey. So have you partnered with him and said, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about, let's like kind of work through the chaos. Okay. And I don't mean to say that in front of him, but have you like worked on goals? Like, you know what I mean? Have you asked him like, what are your goals for while you're here for treatment in order, you know, to move forward?
Yeah. So that's when we do the BPSA, that's one of the questions that we ask is what is your goal? And he said his goal was just to figure out how to stay off fentanyl and get out of here and be able to play music is his goal. But I feel like that would be helpful if we really focused on more specific goals of what he wants life to look like outside of like when he gets done with treatment. So that's helpful.
Okay.
Is there anything you really are unsure about, or
I guess it's just I was frustrated with myself when I was sitting there and all he was wanting to talk about was the PS5, and I felt like I didn't know, like I kept trying to like redirect of, hey, like let's focus on, you know, your time here. Like I can't change the situation with the console at this moment. Like we don't know what that's going to look like, but let's think about, okay, what are coping skills that we can work on here. And he was like, I don't want to, he was like, those are my coping tools, like they're the best coping tools for me and nothing else works. It's like,
I don't have a question, but just maybe a suggestion for you, because I kind of deal with this a lot as well. I would say it's about building that rapport with him, just that working alliance. You just want to keep him talking. So just ask him about what games he likes. When he plays the games, how's he feel? How's he feel after the game? Just kind of dig into that just to get him talking. The more he talks, then you kind of slide little little helpful things in there. And then just kind of, with it being a music place, then focus on the music and allow the music to kind of do the therapy as well. I would say just get him talking, and just show interest in what he's talking about.
Yeah. Okay. I think I sometimes get in my head of like every word that I say has to come from this like theoretical stance because I'm so worried that I'm gonna like mess up, but really reminding myself that it's also about rapport building. Like
Exactly. So I work for Dallas County Metro Care. So a lot of my people are co-current with drug addictions as well. So it's all about, they want to be relatable. It's like show that empathy. So if you kind of tend to be like a friend to them first, then they'll be more receptive to being helped by you, is what I've experienced so far.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Another question, Lizzie. Have you looked at his medical record to see if he has any medical diagnoses in addition to the behavioral health diagnoses? I mean, because we want to look at him holistically and see if he's got, I don't know, maybe ADHD or, I mean, maybe some autoimmune. I don't know. I'm just asking if you've looked to look at his medical history.
I know that I have. There wasn't anything that I can recall that stood out to me, but I can definitely revisit it. I'll definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Y'all are giving me great notes. Thank you so much.
Have you talked to him about his other goals besides addiction related goals as far as music and like along the same line of talking about the PS2 or I'm sorry, I'm going to get the game platform wrong because
Yeah,
I don't know anything
fine.
about games, but like
Okay.
music seems to be something that he desires as a vocation. And he already has some inkling that getting off fentanyl will help him be able to play more music. So that's a real interest that to try to work on in him, you know, honing his skill. Like right now, maybe he can look at an opportunity to use this to become a better musician, you know, and maybe that will give him another goal besides just getting through the, you know, the problems that he has now. Something sort of like out there that he can be, you know, focusing on. It's a positive thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking from, I can't even remember who told me at this point, but yeah, thinking of goals not just for treatment but for life in general.
Right.
So, but thank you all so much for the feedback. I feel like I feel more solid about that. Unless anyone has like some like questions or specifically, I just don't want to take up all the time if somebody else has a case.
I just wanted to chime in and say this is not really advice about this PS5 thing specifically, but rather that a reminder that your job is not to be the one to make him change, but rather to provide him that opportunity. And it sounds like you gave him a lot of those opportunities, and he is just not in a space. I know it's a little different in the environment that you're in. Like there's a little more of a directive focus there, but at the end of the day, he's the only one who can make those changes. And as long as you are presenting him with those options and doing your best with that, like you sounded like you were putting a lot of pressure on yourself to be like, oh, I need to have everything has to be this theoretical orientation. Like I gotta have the right plan. And it's like at the end of the day, all that stuff is great and it's really important. But if he's not ready to make the change, then there's nothing you can do that will convince him to do that. And it sounds like he's really fixated on that one thing right now. I think John had a great point. Like if all of your therapeutic insight is just bouncing off of him, then the relationship is all you have left, and you might as well build on that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
What made you so frustrated with yourself?
I think it was because, I don't like that question. I think it probably comes down to this feeling of I have to be perfect and I have to have great moments with my clients every time I meet with them. and that I have this like internal, I have to leave every session feeling like the client got something, like I have to see that the client got something out of it and not feel like I don't know if they got anything out of that. Which is something that like we are not always going to be able to see, and we're not always going to feel that we've like had this amazing moment with a client. So I think that's probably what it comes down to, is like my own sense of I need to feel a certain way after meeting with them, and that's on me, not on them.
So if you feel that way from time to time, whether it's with a client or any other part of your life, how do you typically handle that feeling?
I overanalyze myself. I overanalyze, and I try to figure out where it is that I went wrong. I think right now I need to be framing it more as how can I use this to improve in the future? And yeah, I think whenever I don't, like whenever I feel like I didn't have like an aha moment or that I messed up, I tend to then just take it on as like a personal trait of I'm not a good therapist.
Have you learned anything about yourself as a therapist in these 3 sessions? And it could have been something
I
you already
think,
knew before anyway, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think I think I learned that there's no magic words that I can say that are gonna change somebody's life. Like it's not like we have this magic formula that we just all we have to do is like show it to someone and then like boom, they change. So realizing that it's not a realistic expectation to think that we're going to solve every problem in one session either. So I think that's probably what I learned, is that like it's not, therapy is like a continued process. It's not a one-time process.
what does that feel like saying that?
It feels like a weight off my shoulders. I feel like I'm getting therapy right now.
Yeah.
I think it feels like a weight off my shoulders of that I'm not a crappy person. That it's different, that it's okay to not have those like incredible life-changing feeling moments with clients. Like that's not the standard. Like that's great when we have it, but that's not the standard.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the client's the one who determines what they get out of the conversation. I don't get to determine what they get from it.
Yeah.
They can walk out the door and say F you to everything that I just talked with them about, and that's fine. Because it comes down to free will at the end of the day.
Yeah. How would you use this, like what you've learned, the things you're describing, like what you've learned or are learning, how would you use this now, like moving forward?
Well, I think I need to get out of my head of being perfect. and thinking that I know what perfect looks like. A, perfect's not attainable, but B, it's not like there's a perfect formula for this person and a perfect formula for this person. Like, perfection doesn't exist, therefore there's no perfect formula. So moving forward, it's focusing on the connection piece instead of what theory can I use right now with this person, focusing on connection and getting them to talk and just encouraging that thought process for them rather than a theoretical process.
Mhm. Good. Is this helpful? Has this been helpful, like talking about it?
Oh, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. I feel like it helps me recognize my flaws and where I can improve, but also not like, I don't feel like everyone's like harping on, or even you, Dr. Bernard, I don't feel like I'm being harped on for like, oh, like you did this wrong, or you should have done this, or like it's just like this is opportunity for me to learn from it. And at the end of the day, like I didn't harm the client. I didn't like, there's nothing, it's not like I made something worse. Because that's what I feel like I get concerned about is, oh my gosh, am I going to make something worse? When, like, if my heart and my intention is not to harm and I stay within ethics, like, yeah, then I don't have to worry about that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Doing good, Lizzie. You're doing good.
Thanks.
One thing, this is true for not just Lizzie's client, like just in a general sense of um, when people, not just clients, but when people are struggling, it's easier to avoid what they're struggling with than it is to address it, just in general. And so, in some ways, a lot of what we as human beings do is trying to avoid a feeling that we know we don't like. And in that way, some things we do becomes like avoidant behavior, let's say. And avoidant behavior is a superb short-term solution, but a horrible long-term solution. And so sometimes, like I'm just speaking practically, if you think about, I'm going to use the client you're talking about, like the PS5, those comments are avoidant behavior. His parents are using avoidant behavior. They don't want to deal with him. They're saying you have to do this in order to do this. I mean, it's avoidant behavior is what they're trying to avoid something. Everyone's trying to avoid something in essence. Most of the time, what we're trying to avoid is a feeling. Most of the time. And I'm just throwing that out because a lot of the devices we use in our world are used for avoidance of some kind. Not 100% of the time, but it happens quite often. And especially if this guy's got anxiety, like anyone that's got anxiety, he's just medicating himself basically this whole time. So, but he's probably been doing it for a long time. So to your point of like, there's no magic wand. 3 times I've met with him, this guy's been doing this he's got a prior. So, I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. So
yeah, he's been using substances for 10 years.
Yeah. So 3 sessions up versus 10 years is, that'd be awesome. If you could do that, right now, you could charge whatever you want you'd have a million people waiting to see you, a line out the door and around the corner, for sure. Good questions, everybody. So we're going to do, every class will do this, like at the beginning, we'll do a case. And I use Lizzie was my guinea pig. I'm gonna focus on you as a therapist and let you guys focus on the case, because we have a tendency to beat ourselves up as therapists most days because we think we're doing something wrong, when in reality we're probably doing fine. And so it's good to just process that too, that part of it, I think. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, well, any questions about anything?
About anything?
Anything.
I have a singular question. It is as we're approaching LPCA status, I have been semi-courted by a private practice here in East Texas. It seems like a great place. Very excited. So there's a supervisor there that I want to work with. And the rate that they offer all of their LPCAs felt smaller than I anticipated. And I wanted to know if there was a kind of a standard or a normative rate that we could be expecting to make as associates in a private practice. Like the rate was, they are charging way higher than I was expecting. They charge $90 to see the associates, and the associates keep $30 of that. And I don't know if that's normal or if that's lower, higher. Just trying to kind of feel out what is expected there.
Well, this is a perfect segue because this is the stuff I was about to talk about anyway. So this is perfect.
Fantastic.
Now, am I so cloudy that I just missed that you keep 30% of what you?
That is correct. Well, 33% if you're being very specific, but yeah, one third.
So if you see 10 clients in a week, you get $330.
Correctamundo.
And then you pay about 26% tax, 22% tax.
Mm-hmm.
And you be self-employed, so you pay 15% self-employment tax. I'm just saying.
I thought that was low. I just wanted to know if there was.
So let's talk about this for a second. I had some slides for all this and I cannot find them, and it's really frustrating me because I don't know where I put them in a folder and I can't find them. But I'm gonna go through a couple of things, and I'm gonna go slow. So let's talk first about joining a practice and what that looks like, or not, or whatever you decide to do. Some of you might stay where you're at, which is whatever you do, that whatever you want to do. Most practices, if you join a practice, there's a couple of different ways that practices, in terms of private practice, there's a couple of different ways that they're run. The first way is an owner operator type of practice, which is what Tyler's describing, in that there's an owner and then they hire therapists to work for their practice. And unless they make a lot of money, they don't hire people like full time. They contract with them. So when you're a contracted employee, it's a 1099 employee, then automatically you are responsible for any tax burden, not the practice, right? The practice doesn't pay any tax burden. That's a W-2 employee, right? So right off the bat, you'll want to know, am I contracted with you? And 99% of the time, they're going to say, yes, this is a contract. I'm saying this specifically because a lot of people don't think about that or know what the heck that is, and don't think, you think I got a job, I'm going to make, I'm going to make $70 per client. Well, yeah, in theory you are, but let's talk more specifically about what that means. So if you join an owner operated practice, you will most typically pay a percentage to the practice, and you'll keep a percentage. And it's a split, just like Tyler's split is 30-70, right? So what you just said, you keep 30, they keep 70.
Yeah, just about.
Okay. Or roughly 33
Yeah,
and
yeah,
67.
yeah. 30-70 is a good number. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what.
Which is less than 60-40. All right. So 50-50 is better than that for sure. The most typical split that I see is 60-40. You keep 60, they keep 40. Every once in a while, there's a 70-30, but that's pretty rare. Just depends on the practice and the size of practice. It's always in your contract. And if there's options for that split to go up, that will be in your contract as well. Like if you work here X amount, we'll bump it up to this percentage. And if you see X amount of clients, you might get a larger percentage, that kind of thing. Okay. The second type of practice is like a cost share practice where there is someone that owns it, but they just bring people into the practice and everyone shares the cost of the practice. So obviously you would keep far more of the money that you would bring in, and you would be more likely to set your own fee at that point. Most of the owner operated practices set fees based on whatever their business model is, right? So the way an owner operator works is they'll have 5 rooms, and how do they make money? They keep all 5 rooms going all the time, right? And as long as they have 5 rooms going, they know they're making X amount off those 5 rooms, right? Does that make sense? That's how that works.
Right.
If you're part of a cost share, you might have a room, and how much money you make is really more on you than the practice per se, right? Because now you're still cost sharing the amount of the lease and the utilities and maybe some marketing or advertising, some administrative help, that kind of thing. Okay. So those are basic kinds of practices. If you work for a clinic, like Lizzie's at a treatment facility, it's a totally different thing. Mostly, right? It might be hourly, or potentially there's full-time jobs for people. A hospital, same thing. Like a lot of hospitals are hiring LPCAs right now. You could go that route, like a behavioral treatment facility, not just substance, but treatment. Like an MHMR is a place where a lot of people get you can pretty much get your hours in 18 months. But there's, upsides and downsides to that. So those types of facilities are mostly like hourly, or maybe it's a salary, that kind of thing, right? If you go private practice, you're going to go this kind of split cost share kind of deal. If you go to a facility, it's probably hourly or some kind of salary, mostly. The big difference is if you go the private practice route and you contract with someone, you're a 1099 employee, right? So just for kicks, if you say, I'm using round numbers, I make $100 a week, $400 a month, then I'm going to pay a self-employment tax, and I'm going to pay my regular Fed tax, which includes the Social Security part, which is the full 15%. Okay. So you're going to pay that. Most people do that quarterly. So that means that $400 can become $200 pretty quick, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just things to think about. Now, having said that, and I'm going to put this recording up on Moodle. I had my friend Chris Kendall come to, I think 2 springs ago, and talk tax implications and salary for self-employed folks, especially mental health folks. And he did a really great job over 2 hours of explaining it. I'm going to give you just super overview, and just watch that video. It's very, very helpful. He talks about a lot of things. The students asked really good questions. I think it was really helpful to see. There are a couple of things that you can do to help yourself tax-wise, and salary-wise. And there's also some things you need to do legally to protect yourself. The first thing is any person can become an LLC. You can become your own company. In Texas, since you'll be a professional, it's a PLLC. So any professional in Texas, that's what you are. It costs $300 to file it with the state. you become an LLC. And that gives you a legal veil of protection. So it's such that if something, God forbid, happens and someone comes after you, your personal and professional is separated. As long as you keep it separated. The second protection that can be very helpful is forming a corporation, which lots of folks do. Like I'm an S Corp, so I'm Chris Bedard, PLLC. I'm an S Corp. I have my own, my S Corp has its own tax identification number. And therefore, since as an S Corp, what you do is you state how much salary that particular person makes, and you're only taxed on whatever that stated salary is. Now, technically, it's supposed to be whatever is most accepted in that field, right? So I'm just making these numbers up. If I say a marriage and family therapist in my field makes $50,000 a year, that's how much I say I make, and that's how much I get taxed on. Anything I make above that, I don't get taxed on. It's a dividend back into the business technically. Right? So I can I can go to 100,000, but I'm only taxed on 50.
How is that legal? I'm very confused.
So
Sorry.
this is what medical professionals do it, lawyers do it. Anyone that's self-employed, you can do this. Any self-employed person.
Ooh.
It's a
Is
way. And you don't pay the self-employment tax either.
So is it that like, say, for your example, you go 50,000 over what your stated salary was? Is it that 50,000 is like going back into the business and the business is you? Or do you
Yes.
have to designate
You're the
those
employee.
funds?
You're the employee, so you will take an owner share too, and those dividends technically go back into the business.
Okay. But do you have to like designate that they're going into like specific business expenses, or it's no?
You keep your business expenses separate from everything, right? And so when you'll
Mhm.
file taxes, you'll file business taxes every year on March 15th. It will include everything you made and spent and everything. It's just like a regular tax return. And that salary will be 50,000, and you would have paid taxes on that too
Mhm.
this whole time. But anything you made, so you have a profit loss statement. So if you make above that, that's not taxed. That's
Gotcha.
just going
It's
back
seen
into
as
the business.
profit going.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Makes
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'm giving you guys a super high level view of this. It'll save you thousands of dollars. So those are some things to think about. The second thing I'll say about when you find a facility or a practice that you're going to join, whatever contract you sign, please read the contract. Make sure you know what's in the contract. Some contracts are pretty straightforward. I mean, most places aren't trying to fool you or anything, but you'll want to read through it and know. Like right now, I got contacted by a couples therapy group that does virtual therapy in multiple states, and they reached out to me and they're wanting me to work for them, like to contract with them. And they sent me a contract, but there's nothing in the contract about the salary, like how much I would make. Right. So instead of signing it, I sent back, said, I don't see anything about like what's your percentage, what am I making, that kind of thing. If there's nothing in your contract that makes sense, like if it doesn't point out like, okay, you're going to make X percentage and we're going to make X percentage or something like that, here's your rate. Or if it doesn't say that, you need to ask about that. Otherwise, they could do whatever they want, pretty much. The second thing you'll want to know is, do you have, is there, do they keep all the files? Like, do they own the clients? Or when you leave, or if you leave, what does that mean? What does that look like? Because sometimes people have a no compete clause in their contracts. that may or may not be legally binding, but they still use it anyway. And this is kind of a gray area to begin with, but they a lot of times will have that in there. If you work for a cost sharing type of practice, most typically you own your clients. Like I worked for a cost sharing practice in Keller before COVID. So when I left there, I kept my clients. I took all my clients with me, but that was all, but I brought my clients with me there too. So that's just something to think about. So my suggestion would be to think through what they're offering percentage wise. Tyler, to me, 33% seems low.
I agree.
Yeah.
The follow-up question though is do you have any suggestions on how to broach that topic? Because this is it's a small practice in small town East Texas. And I'm not trying to burn bridges and people do tend to get a little skittish when money is involved. So I would like to broach this conversation and say, it seems like that might be a little on the low end. I'm not quite sure how to do that though. I've never had to do that in a job before. So if you have any suggestions on that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, I mean, what you're trying to do is negotiate something. So I think it's okay to say something to the effect of, is this what usually, like, is this your usual rate for an associate? It seems low. I don't know if I can go quite that low.
Mm.
And then let them, you'll know pretty quick if they're firm or not, you know. And there's no reason, if they're really, I mean, business savvy, this is the business side of therapy we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have spent this whole time talking about the theory, application, therapy part. I'm talking about the business part. So we got to turn our brain and pick up the business pieces now, because this is business. And this is very important because it's your livelihood in a lot of ways. Like when I was working, I was a breadwinner for my family. This was not like, I didn't have anybody making, my wife, we had little kids, so she was a stay-at-home mom, so I had to work. So I was like super serious about how much I was going to make. Well, no one's going to do it for you, right? Now, to your point, you don't have to burn bridges and be a butthole about it all. I mean, you can be nice, but 30% is low. Everyone knows it's low. At the same time, if that's what they do, at least you'll know that.
Yeah.
It's okay for you to have maybe a number involved in your head. That's okay. It's okay for you to think they're pricing their service at a price point that will work in East Texas.
Mm.
Where is this? We're in what city?
Oh, it's in Tyler.
Tyler. So people in Tyler can pay more than $90, but they're pricing their price point at $90 because you're going to get people from, Winona and Arp and Kilgore and, I grew up in East Texas. That's why I know where all these places are.
I was like, you're throwing out a lot of small town cities. I love it.
Yeah. So they know that, and that's why they're pricing. And that's fine. That's fine. But you have to know what you guys have to know what you're kind of like, what are you thinking?
Mm.
Like what makes more sense to you?
Yeah.
But it's okay to ask about the percentage breakdown. It's always okay to ask, I think.
Yeah. Do you think it would be inappropriate to ask for like a more specific breakdown about where the money's actually going and who it's going to? Because they mentioned that they included supervision costs in the $30 that they're paying out, which is great, but also at the same time, would it be inappropriate to say, how much of what you're taking is actually going back to the business? How much is going to the supervisor? Is it going anywhere else? What all is going? Is that an inappropriate thing to ask?
Well, I think you can ask what you're paying in, like what's it for? And you can just act dumb. Just can be like, I'm so sorry, I've never done this before. I'm just like, I'm just trying to understand how this works.
Yeah, it's not an act.
Well, I mean, acting dumb is a perfectly normal way to figure out information. I do it all the time.
Right on. Right on.
Like with Lizzie's family. Hey, man, I do not know. Your family sounds interesting, man. Help me understand. My family was not like that. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. Help me understand like what's happening. Your culture sounds super fascinating to me. I am a white guy from Texas. I probably don't know anything about this part of India you're talking about. Can you help me understand it? I don't know. I'm so sorry. I don't understand. And that's probably on me. There's nothing wrong with that. It works 100% of the time. I mean, does that make anyone defensive, me saying that? I'm just asking.
No, that makes perfect sense. Because if you come in as the one who needs to be taught, then it kind of gives people the space to step into their, oh, you don't know something? Well, let me explain it to you.
Yeah. Like
It's
if I tell any of the ladies what it's like to be a lady, that's the stupidest thing that could ever happen in the history of the world. Doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? Like why that doesn't make like why do things like that? Just be curious and be kind of it's just a when I say act stupid, what I mean is act like just just act really curious and just put on the face of like I'm trying to understand. Help me understand what's happening. And asking questions is always a better way. I think it's perfectly normal to ask about the pay. That's your pay.
Yeah.
You know,
we don't have to pretend like it's not important. It doesn't have to be the most important thing, but Papa's got to put food on the table.
Yeah, man. Business is business. That part's business. You'll know really quickly how firm they are.
Yeah. Okay.
I would think. Yeah, for sure. Does that help at all? Hopefully.
Absolutely. No, that's tremendously helpful.
Good. Okay. Any other questions about any of that stuff? Okay. You won't have to worry about like insurance and all that stuff. As an associate, you can't take insurance or I mean, there's some things you can't do. You don't have to worry about. You're just kind of like getting your hours, you know. You can get paid for it and you're just getting your hours. Technically now LPC associates and LMFTA associates can technically have their own practice, but you're still working underneath supervision. You technically can't do that.
Doc, LPCAs in Texas can actually can get certified with Cigna and Aetna now. I'm saying that is I'm working in a practice where we have an LPCA who is currently registered with both Cigna and Aetna. They're the only two that are doing it in Texas, but unless she is just flagrantly breaking the law, that's something that she's got going on right now.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna check that business out.
So I have a question in regards to that. So does that mean, so like with the facility that I'm at right now, we take insurance. We have very few clients who are private pay. Does that mean that that when I'm an LPCA, because my plan is to stay on and they've talked with me about staying on once I get my associate, can I see clients who are there on insurance?
Yeah, because you're not the one on the panel. Yeah, you're not on the panel.
I can't do that as a private practice, but I can, with private practice, could I provide the client a super bill?
Yeah, you can always provide
to their insurance.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can, but if you're unless there's something I don't know about, I've never heard what Tyler just said, but unless there's something I don't know about, a super bill is fine. But if you're an LPCA, most insurance companies won't pay it anyway because you're an associate. You're not fully licensed.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to check into that business. That's game changing. Cigna and Aetna pay crap anyway. I mean, they don't pay very much. Their payouts like 50 or 60 bucks.
It's not good, but it is something that at least is happening in a practice. I'm not, don't take this as gospel truth. I'm just telling you what my personal experience has been so far. And I'm not particularly interested in staying with that practice. So I haven't done a lot of my own research on it, but
Yeah.
If it's happening at least in one single location in the state of Texas, and if that's interesting to you guys, it might be worth taking a second look at.
Well, that's a whole other thing, joining insurance panels or not. I mean, that's a whole other ball game, because there's pros and cons to that. I think the pros is you can build your practice really fast. The con is you don't get paid as much. So, like the payout of Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is like 80% of Texas, like around 80% of insured folks in Texas have Blue Cross. Their payout for individuals is 87.62 or something like that. But for couples, it's only 79. Don't ask me why, but it's just less. Couples or families. For United, it's 110 for individuals and 91 for couples. And those are the top. Cigna and Aetna are way, way less than that. I think Aetna is what most teachers have right now, or at least they did. I don't know if their contracts changed, but anyway, that's a whole other ball game. Any other questions about any of that stuff? Okay. Yeah, I think it's good to check your contract. It's always good to kind of think through like your payment, what that means and what that looks like. I have been suggesting that you guys start, like, find a CPA, even if it's a friend, and just start talking to them about tax implications of self-employment. Just talk to them about it and see, walk through it with people and ask questions. I wish I would have done that. I didn't do that. That's super smart to do. They'll be able to tell you exactly, as a self-employed person. There's no difference in being self-employed as a doctor or a therapist, except the amount of money you make. But self-employment is self-employment. So, that's, the S corp designation that I was talking about is kind of the federal government. That's how they see you. The LLC is how the state government sees you. Right. So I would just encourage you to talk to a CPA, because and the laws change too, like the rules and laws change too over time. And so it's really good to get people that you trust and talk to people that you trust. I wish I would have done that. I just didn't do it quick enough. I kind of just went off of what I thought, and it didn't work out as well for me. In the beginning, I made a ton of mistakes that I didn't make. After about 3 or 4 years, I was like, I'm sure there's a better way to do this, and I figured out a better way. Okay. All right. Any questions about anything else?
Yeah, I kind of thought of a question. So
Yeah.
you have your own private practice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask how you market yourself? Or do you even
Yes.
need to at this point?
You can. I do a couple things. So I'm on Psychology Today,
Mhm. Okay.
and most all my clients come from word of mouth.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I work in a couple different areas. I do a couple of different things. And so like pretty much 90% of my clients come from word of mouth. I am with United. I get a few folks from United periodically, but I'm also virtual in multiple states. So
Yeah.
that's a new thing. That's new for me, and that's new in the field, but that's not going away. That's going to get more. I think that's the future, personally, to me. That's the future, and I think it'd be smart to think through that part. I personally don't miss in-person therapy. I love doing virtual. Like, I just got off with a client right, and then got on in this class. I mean, it's like I can go from one to the next. And I do my days where I do a lot of clients on a couple of 2 or 3 days, and then the other days are real light. I do other things, and so. But Psychology Today is probably the most popular way to advertise. And when you guys get your associate, you can advertise on there. LinkedIn now is becoming popular. You can create a business Facebook page. You can do it that way too. but psychology today is just that's probably the most, that's probably what most people do. Now, I have marketed myself differently, like gone and talked to like doctors' offices. I marketed myself with the salon in Denton when I first moved there, and I got a ton of clients from them. And just any place, like it depends on your niche. Like if you're going to work with kids, you need to get in with the schools. Go meet the counselors and principals at schools. Churches are a good avenue if you want to go that route. Doctors' offices are always good, like pediatric offices, family practice offices. They're always having, they'll always need care. Like I did get on, like when I lived in Keller, I got on the Keller list of providers. I did that. I mean, there's lots of little ways, but I just kind of grew everything I did word of mouth and networking with people pretty much.
Okay, another quick question then. Do you have a specialty?
Yeah, I mainly work with couples now.
Okay.
So, but also I do a lot of anxiety work, like imposter syndrome, anxiety. A lot of I'm working with a lot of people in the tech industry. So it's a very specific form of anxiety, perfectionism, and so that's kind of what those are the two areas. And then I've also got a little bit of and I make this small on purpose. I've got a little part of my practice that is trauma focused because I can't do a ton of that. It's really hard for me to do a bunch of it.
That's all I'm doing.
Yeah. So I'm certified in prolonged exposure therapy, which is a form of trauma-centered exposure therapy. So it's very specific.
Well, I don't know if anybody else is interested or has looked into anything. I think I plan on getting EMDR trained before I'm done. Yeah. Yeah. EMDR IA approved. So.
Yeah. I got paid to get trained in this, so that's all I got time. I don't have time for all the other stuff. So
it's the thing to do now. It's kind of like, especially when I looked, if you're in trauma, that's pretty much
it is. And at the same time, there's other evidence-based care that works. Like I've get the results in 8 sessions with people.
Oh. Well, what I really want to do is do brain spotting, but you have to do EMDR first. That's the umbrella. And then, so brain spotting is where I'm going.
Yeah. Yeah. I think whatever niche you want to do, there's a certification for everything now, basically.
I know.
Pretty much. So that's the beauty of it. You don't have to keep going to school. You just get certified in something. It's not hard, really. And you can count them as CEUs. That's the other thing. Get all your CEUs for the period of time in like one weekend. It's really nice.
I mean, that's our indirect hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kristen is gone, but that's easy.
Super easy. Yeah, super easy. Yeah, for sure. Any other questions about anything? We're going to meet again on the October 12th. Yeah, October 12th. And any of you that I had in lifespan development, they have a midterm that weekend. So you're just missing out on that. Although my questions, there's only 25 questions now, not 75. I'm getting.
Oh, wow.
I'm skilling lax. Man, I'm getting like going lax.
COVID was great for your students.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I've had COVID 3 times this year.
Whoa!
I don't even go anywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really jacked me up in the summer really bad.
It's probably your kids.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Probably the kids. Definitely the kids.
Oh yeah, 100%. None of them have had it.
They're
My kids have
silent.
never had it.
They're all asymptomatic carriers. You're just
Yeah.
getting
I think they're
Nothing like-
superheroes. They're like superheroes or something.
Yeah.
Like M. Night Shyamalan movie. What's the
Unbroken.
first- with Bruce Willis.
There you go. That's the one.
That's them. That's what they are.
Listen, I've been on the lookout for it for 3.5 years now. I still haven't gotten COVID.
That's good.
I know.
Yeah.
It's lucky.
I got it bad in December. It was real bad. But
Oof.
okay, everyone go to sleep.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me twice.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Good fun,
guys.
y'all. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thank you.